Welcome to The Flow, hosted by Bob Martin, slightly edgy glimpses into politics, culture, society, and being human.
Hey, good people. You know, I've been watching the news coverage of all the protests that have been happening around the country, listening to all the people on the streets being interviewed about what's going on in their communities. And, there's one word I keep hearing over and over, and I keep hearing it: neighbor. Neighbor. I hear we're protecting our neighbors. We're standing up for our neighbor. We need to be available to our neighbors. Neighbor. Neighbor. Keep hearing. Now, that word is doing something. In a time when we're as divided as we've ever been, when Democrats see Republicans as authoritarians trying to tear down democracy, and Republicans see Democrats as woke ideologues obsessed with culture wars, neighbor is the word rising up from the actual streets, from actual people facing actual events in their actual communities. And, maybe there's some wisdom in that. When Jesus was asked, and it's a famous question, who is my neighbor? He didn't say it's the person who looks like you, talks like you, votes like you. He told the story of the Good Samaritan, the outsider, the other, the one you'd least expect to show up and help. The neighbor Jesus was telling us about is both the person next door and your fellow human being, your compatriot in this shared experience of being alive. And that dual meaning matters because, my neighbor is the person whose house I can see from my window, but my neighbor is also the person 3 states away, the person who voted differently than I did, the person whose life looks nothing like mine. We're all neighbors in the sense of that we share this country, this moment, this human condition. And here's the thing. For the most part, we all want the same basic stuff. We want smooth roads to drive on. We want to feel safe when we go to the grocery to buy eggs. Now, we can argue about who's responsible for egg prices going up. And believe me, people are arguing about that. But there's no debate that we all want eggs. We all want a country that's stable, where people can be happy, where people can thrive. So we have wildly different ideas about how to get there, but I'm not naive about that. But, those are conversations we can have if we start from the recognition that we are neighbors. And, it goes deeper than roads and eggs. As fellow human beings, we all know what pain is. Physical pain, emotional pain, the gut punch of loss. We understand it because we all carry it. And here's what I've noticed. Regardless of political ideology, when tragedy strikes, someone in the neighborhood, someone shows up. Food seems to be the common language we speak. Somebody dies, somebody's in the hospital, somebody's struggling, and what do? We bring food, casseroles and cookies and covered dishes, and they show up on the doorsteps. We send flowers. We ask about errands. We offer to pick up the kids. We know instinctively that we want to bring comfort and to ease the pain. That's what neighbors do. But being a neighbor, and this is important, being a neighbor is not just a passive event. Mr. Rogers didn't observe, "You are my neighbor." He asked, "Won't you be my neighbor?" That's an invitation. That's a call to action. Being a neighbor requires the cultivation of compassion, yes. It requires vulnerability, yes. It requires the willingness to accept the fact that, I might carry the same character defects and problems and struggles that my neighbor carries. But it also requires engagement. It doesn't help much if I look across the street at a house where tragedy has struck and think, how sad, how hard for them if I don't get off my duff and actually do something about it. And you know what? That means accepting some discomfort. It means I got to readjust my calendar, make room for the burdens of another person, not just my own. Maybe there's a selfish element to it. Maybe I hope that if I rise to the occasion for my neighbor someday when I need it, they'll do the same for me. But be that as it may, the cultivation of compassion and engagement, that's just part of what it means to be a neighbor. I'm reminded of things soldiers often say when they're asked about their heroism on the battlefield. They say, when you're out there, it's not about your country. It's not about the politics. It's not about the ideology. It's about your brother, your sister soldier, the one that's right next to you. Because in the pressure of the moment, in the heat of the battle, it always comes down to taking care of the neighbor in that very small circle. Now, look, I need to be honest about something. There is a vocal minority in this country whose vision of America is fundamentally different from what I've been describing here. Over the past 100 years, our culture has evolved slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely towards something more egalitarian, more focused on equity and equal opportunity. But this minority wants to reverse course. They want to return to a time when our culture was white male dominated, when there was a privileged class entitled to its privileges, when some people were considered more equal than others. But that's not the America most of us want to see. Most of us want an America that provides equal opportunity to all our neighbors, that takes into account the very real and very different limitations people carry as individuals. But with that vocal minority, the conversation isn't about different paths to a shared goal. It's that the goals themselves are incompatible. And I'll be direct. There are some things in life that are simply non-negotiable. Some positions we cannot agree to disagree with. We must actively stand against. And yet, we have to keep that in perspective. That is fewer people than more people. The great majority of us, across political divides, across every demographic difference you can name, all want basically the same thing: a country where we can live with dignity, raise our families, help each other through hard times, and build something decent together. I've been thinking about Mr. Rogers a lot lately. In a time of manufactured outrage and amplified division, in a time where loudest voices are also the angriest voices, maybe that simple invitation is also the most radical one: to recognize each other's humanity, to show up when it matters, to bring the casserole, to be neighbors. Won't you be my neighbor?